Hey, welcome to Watch Candy. Thank you so much for joining me. I am super excited for today because today I get to talk about a watch that I got in Paris. Now, Paris is a huge city, so of course there's lots of different options when it comes to picking a watch. There's insanely high-end, super niche pieces that are worth insane amounts of money, super cool, but definitely not what I was shooting for. There's all types of different fashion watches, and of course your regular names, Rolex, Tag Heuer, the like. I wanted an in-store shopping experience that I could only get in Paris. And that really made shopping interesting. I spent a whole day just looking at watch stores. I considered brands like Baltic and Yema. But the watch I ultimately bought, this one right here, was one that I wasn't expecting at all. You see, this watch right here is the Charlie Paris GRX Chronograph Evo III. That's a lot. And prior to my research, I didn't even know this brand existed. I came across this brand in my research, and upon initial inspection, I wasn't terribly impressed. I mean, they've got some decent designs for sure, but nothing that really popped. So, I put them on the list of places to visit, cause why not, right? But I actually happened to pass one of two boutiques that they have in Paris on the way to, I think it was Baltic, and I figured, hey, it's right in front of me, might as well pop in. And I am so glad I did. Of course, the watch looks super awesome, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's first talk about the basic specs. The watch is housed in a stainless steel black PVD case, which comes to about 39mm in width and 45mm lug to lug. Excluding the slightly domed sapphire crystal, the watch is about 10.9mm thick. It has 100 meters of water resistance with a push-pull crown and a screw-in case back. And the movement is the Seiko VK64 Mecha Quartz movement. Because of the movement, you've got a chronograph that measures a maximum time of 1 hour, as well as a 24-hour complication and a date. The lug width is a perfect 20mm, which gives way to this really awesome rubber strap. I've got the watch on this beautiful green rubber strap with the black hardware to match. More on that later. I know whenever I do a review type video about watches, I always forget to talk about the price until the very end. But this watch is $545. So enough about the specs, let's get into the design of this piece. I think first and foremost, we really have to talk about the color choice. What's immediately apparent about this watch is that it has a really interesting and diverse array of colors, most notably the orange, yellow, and blues. Because the watch has a quote, alpine inspiration, a lot of its design cues take a lot of inspiration from climbing equipment, which of course is this bright safety orange. In both instances where orange is incorporated, mainly on the chronograph hand and the left subdial, you'll see that it actually goes from orange to yellow. On the 24-hour indicator on the right subdial, I really love how they've got a beautiful fade from dark blue to light blue as you look from top to bottom, and that really ties in the whole day-night indicator. And of course, that pop of yellow really makes the whole thing come together. Moving on to that plain white center dial piece, it's got a beautifully matte texture and is slightly raised up from the minute track and the subdials. I adore the black Arabic numerals that have been applied to that dial. Not only does it make a very three-dimensional dial structure, but the dark black against the bright white is so pretty. And that goes for the black printing too. I also want to point out the minute track. I can't quite decide what color it is or finish. In some light, it looks a little bit blue, in some a little bit green, and I can't quite tell if it's like a shiny matte or even like a slight sunburst finish. It's really interesting, and I'll try my very best to capture it on my camera with my little studio, but no promises. Of course, both the minute track and that white center dial have a cutout for the date display at 6 o'clock. I really like having a date function on my watches. Yes, I'm one of them. And having it at 6 o'clock to maintain that symmetry is just magnificent. Moving on to the case, and this is another part of this watch's design that is just so perfect. That black PVD coating on the stainless steel feels very high-end and very solid. You do have a very angular case design, which, yes, guilty, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I am a huge sucker for angled case designs. It's obviously not supposed to be a very blingy watch, but that doesn't mean they didn't want the watch to have awesome visual appeal. You do actually have 3 different types of finishing on the black PVD case. Most of it sports either vertical or horizontal brushing, and along the edges you do have a nice polished chamfer. But notably, the top of the bezel actually has a satin sandblasted texture. Because the case is all black, it has this kind of abyssal feeling where the details kind of get lost into each other because it's just black on black. But as you interact with this watch and look at it from different angles and in different lighting, all sorts of details just jump out at you that previously weren't there before. The texture on those chronograph pushers and the crown as well is a knurled texture, which again really gives it that mountaineering tactile utility feel. The crown also has an engraving of an X on it, which I assume is in reference to GRX, which segues perfectly into the case back design, which as you can see has a lot going on. Do not ask me what all these little symbols mean, honestly I'm not sure. However, I do like that the specifications are done in French. Alright, let's talk about the strap. So one of the perks of going to the boutique was that I got to pick out from a wider variety of straps. When you order the watch online, you do have a handful of options. You can also choose from gray nylon, black rubber, and black leather. I went a slightly different route and I picked this beautiful forest green strap. I love the contrast between the orange and green. With the exception of my white rubber strap from Deluxe, which was almost $150 just by itself, this rubber strap is easily the best rubber strap I have ever interacted with on any watch. It's very dense, not in like a stiff, cheap way. You can tell it's solid, as well as a recessed custom wavy design with the Charlie logo on the underside. The hardware is also quite nice too. Of course, I picked a strap with the black DLC to match. I'll also throw in that it has quick release spring bars as well. So let's talk about my critiques about this watch, because of course there's no such thing as a perfect watch, and although I am madly in love with this piece, I still have some thoughts. Firstly, I would love if there was more lume. There is some lume, and it works really well. I want to say it's BGW9, but I'm not quite sure. It doesn't say anywhere specifically on the listing. I would have really liked if that white center portion of the dial was instead a full lume dial. And the reason I say that is because on other color variations of this watch, it is. If you look at the quote spectral version, you can see that the hands, dial, and sub-dials are all fully lumed. So is it really too much to ask that the centerpiece on my version is lumed? I don't think so. I would have liked if there was 1 or 2 extra holes on the strap. I don't need them, and I really don't think that many other people would need them either, but it just feels nice to have a couple extra just in case. Really, I am a bracelet guy through and through. I wear a lot of watches on leather and rubber straps, more out of necessity, but I would have loved if instead of having so many strap options, they had maybe 2 or 3 strap options and then a bracelet option. I think a full PVD steel bracelet would look so good on this watch. Alright, so that is just about everything you need to know about this watch. Now you can see why I've just been so in love with this piece. Of course, I can't convey this through the camera, but when you've got the watch on or in your hand, it just feels so solid and dense. I don't lead a particularly rugged life, but if I did, I wouldn't have any concerns about this watch. And the fact that it's a mecha quartz movement instead of a fully mechanical chronograph movement just gives me a little bit more peace of mind. I know some people are mechanical purists, and of course that's okay. But for a watch that is meant to be knocked about like this, it is absolutely more advantageous to have a quartz movement. So that's all I've got for today. What do you think about this watch? Have you heard of Charlie Paris before? I certainly haven't, but I wanted to buy something authentic. It's designed and assembled in France, which is cool. I'm really curious what strap option you would choose for this watch, especially since there's so many, so let me know in the comments. Subscribe to join Watch Candy. We're almost at 100 subscribers, which is so cool. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys later.